There is very good news to report following the gruesome beheading of American journalist James Foley. Peter Theo Curtis is now back home in the United States after his release just days ago from captivity in Syria. A Syrian rebel group held the journalist for nearly 2 years. He was one of more than an estimated 30 journalists kidnapped or missing in Syria, according to the Committee to Protect Journalists. Rise News contributor Shahan Ramkissoon joins us with more on Peter Curtis's homecoming. Shahan.
Well, Debbie, the 45-year-old was released to UN peacekeepers on Sunday. He was taken hostage by the Al-Nusra Front, a Sunni extremist group. Addressing the media earlier today, Curtis told everyone that he was thankful for their support, but didn't give details of his imprisonment. Peter Theo Curtis is enjoying every single step of his freedom after being held captive by al-Qaeda-linked terrorists for 22 months. The freelance journalist kept his words short, his voice often cracking with emotion.
I had no idea when I was in prison. I had no idea that so much effort was being expended on my behalf. And now having found out, I am just overwhelmed with emotion. I'm also overwhelmed by one other thing, and that is that total strangers have been coming up to me and saying, "Hey, we're just glad you're home. Welcome home. Glad you're back. Glad you're safe. Great to see you." So I suddenly remember how good the American people are and what kindness they have in their hearts. And to all those people, I say a huge thank you from my heart.
I have 3 days. They're giving me 3 days to live. 3 days.
After almost 2 years of not seeing light of day, Curtis noted it was a beautiful Wednesday. He wouldn't answer questions about the Syrian militants who held him hostage or say how he was treated.
I have to bond with my mother and my family now, and I can't give you an interview, and I can't give you a talk back and forth.
For now, the horrors of Curtis's life in captivity remains secret. But the journalist who's written a book on Islamic extremism says he'll answer more questions once he relaxes into the reality of being a free man once again. And we'll be watching very closely to get those details of his hostage situation. Debbie?
Yeah, all of us want to know much more about it. Well, he looks like he's in fine form. He looks like he's in good health. What else did he say during that address to the media?
You know, it was very short and very humble, and really took the opportunity to thank everyone, not just the American people in that bite that we saw. There were many people involved in his release and negotiations. So he really did mention that, and then specifically that he wanted to thank people on the plane who said, "Welcome back." You know, he was touched that so many people actually knew about the hostage drama, and their thoughts were with him and his family. So that's really all he said, and of course walked away saying that he knows what it is like to be a journalist. He knows that everybody wants the story, but he just needs time to bond with his mum and the rest of his family.
Yeah, I'm sure he does, and he needs the space to be able to do that. I suspect a book might be coming out too as well. Let's talk about why was he in Syria in the first place, and where was he taken hostage? Is there some clarity there?
Well, initial reports and investigations by the family actually discovered that he was in Turkey, close to the Syrian border, and he was working there as a freelance journalist for many organizations. What the family initially said was that he went across the border with somebody who was helping him out, and they then reported that this person turned on him and handed him over to an extremist group, and that's how he ended up in this situation.
Very interesting, you know, coming on the heels of the awful news of the beheading of James Foley, which was just mind-blowing. It's almost unimaginable that he was released. Can you give us a little bit of the backstory of how that even happened?
Yeah, well, what actually happened here is that the U.S. government did not really have much to do with this. They came out quite strongly saying that they will not pay a ransom. They then turned to the Qatar government, who's had many lead-ins and successes in getting people released from situations like this with militant groups in Syria. And that's when the family said things turned and started getting better. Once the Qatar government got involved, they started getting messages from him. They started finding out, you know, whether he was in a good state of mind, whether he was healthy. And they say that they played a critical role in actually ensuring that he was released here.
Well, Shahan, talk to me more about that. What is it about the Qatari government that gives them influence in this regard, and why would they want to get involved?
Yeah. Well, the Qatari government's trying really hard to say that they are against terrorism, and it is known as an ally of the U.S. So they want to naturally be in the good books of many other countries and strong, powerful countries around the world. And that's why they've often offered assistance to both the US and specifically European countries who do pay ransom. And they then get involved and actually, go ahead with the talk. So that's their involvement.
I know you did a little bit of research about these kinds of situations, whether it's a journalist or anyone else that's been taken hostage and there's negotiated release. First of all, is there a possibility that somebody did provide some sort of remuneration to get his release?
It's really hard to tell with something like this because everybody's tight-lipped. Nobody wants to upset this terrorist organization because, firstly, they are known as one of the most aggressive and successful terrorist groups in Syria. And lots of people who are involved in this, Qatari government, the United Nations, as well as the US government who had some say in it, all say that there was no money paid to them and that it was actually just talks, but they're not willing to disclose, what was discussed and how he was released.
You just mentioned this militant group, the Al-Nusra Front, is very good at this. Tell us just a little bit more about them.
Yeah, well, they seem to have managed to actually, hold many journalists and general, non-citizens hostage. And so far, it seems, they've made money from it. It's really Europe that's been funding these organizations unwittingly by paying these ransoms. And this is why they've been so successful in actually doing this so often. In this case, of course, we're not too sure again if the ransom was paid officially or not, but that's why they're so successful and very aggressive in what they do.
Yeah, well, it's good news for Peter Curtis and his family. Shahan Ramkissoon, thank you.